Hello, and welcome back to another edition of Tech in 10, the Louisiana Tech Bulldogs post-game show from the Ruston Daily Leader. I am sports editor Matt Bellinson, coming to you after Louisiana Tech's 14-10 win over the UTEP Miners on Tuesday, October 22nd. A must-win for Louisiana Tech if they wanted to have any shot of still making a bowl game. And they sure did. Somehow found a way to win. There's so many thoughts going through my mind after this one, which we'll get into here. But first, just want to acknowledge, obviously, a win's a win. As I put in my post-game story, this is a program that obviously has had to go through a lot of losses over the past 4 years now, if you wanted to count the last year of Skip Holtz. And this is a program that needed this tonight. I think just not only from a confidence standpoint, but I think just from the idea that, Sonny Cumbie's talked about the idea of momentum and building momentum and, potentially turning the corner. And I think if you're Louisiana Tech, there's a lot of things you could take away from this game that can move you in the right direction. But as we'll get into, there are definitely a lot of things that, familiar themes of, poor execution, sloppy penalties, that I think if you're not careful, kind of like what we saw after the Middle Tennessee win a couple weeks ago, where if you don't handle this properly, if you don't execute, we could be back here next week talking about a frustrating loss to Sam Houston. So, but for now, we're going to focus on the win for tonight, a 14-10 win over UTEP Miners that moves Louisiana Tech to 3-4 overall and 2-2 in Conference USA play. Obviously, first and foremost, what an effort from this defense tonight. Sonny Cumbie kind of mentioned in his post-game, or his pre-game press conference, I should say, this past Friday, ahead of this game, that there's a 6-game sample on Louisiana Tech. People know what they're getting when they play Louisiana Tech at this point. Resumes are clear. What was kind of still pretty early to tell, in the preseason and obviously through the first couple games of the year have now been fleshed out. Teams know what they do well, opponents know what they do well, and et cetera. And through 7 games now, Louisiana Tech's defense, it's playing like a top 30 unit in the country. I know they came into this one a top 30 run defense. Definitely got gashed in the run a little bit tonight. Decent yards per carry for UTEP, but there were definitely some moments in the second half where you thought UTEP was about to go down and score, just given the way they were running, and then they would almost kind of forget that they were running effectively, and for whatever reason would call these strange play calls. But that's neither here nor there. Obviously, the defense held UTEP to 1 of 14 on third down. That was pretty much the ball game right there. 2 of 4 on fourth down, definitely could be better in that area, but 1 of 14 on third down. Still didn't take the ball away. I think that's definitely one thing for this defense where it's top 30, I think, right now, personally. If you want to get in that top 25, top 20 range, I think if you start taking the ball away and you kind of limit some of these drives a little bit more before teams can kind of rack up some of this yardage on you, I think that's where this defense can really elevate itself. And I think you have to give credit. I know Sonny Cumbie is obviously on the hot seat, just given where he started the last 2 years. And where things are kind of still in limbo at this point. Obviously, an encouraging win, but it remains to be seen if they can build on this. But I read comments, I see people's reactions after bad plays, after bad games, and I know there's a lot of frustration with Sonny Cumbie, and I know there's a lot of frustration with how the offense looked, and we'll get into that. Another really bad offense tonight, outside of 2 productive drives. But I think if you're the type of person that wants to, I guess, discredit or defame or whatever you want to say about Sonny Cumbie and the way that he's run this offense over the last 3 years. And I guess, frankly, now that Nathan Young has taken over play calling, the way that the offense has looked under Nathan Young in 2 out of 3 games, I think if you're gonna lump criticism on that, and there's definitely fair to do so. There's certainly a lot of areas that the offense can be better. I think you also have to give credit that Sonny Cumbie hired Jeremiah Johnson and he helped put together this defensive staff. I think you have to acknowledge that this defense has taken leaps and bounds in terms of improvement from where they were last year as a bottom 5 run defense. Now I think after tonight they'll probably be still around that top 30, maybe top 35 range. Again, of 1 of 14 on third down, I don't think I've ever heard of that at the FBS level. It's just a really good defense. Guys gain tackle to the football. Again, some pretty bad penalties against tonight on defense that definitely need to be cleaned up. But for the most part, this is a unit that's playing really well. You have some of the best linebackers in this conference, point blank period. You had some injuries in the secondary. Frankly, just the way that UTEP runs their offense and how bad their quarterback play was, it really didn't matter. Isaiah McElvain went down, early on. Cedric Woods got a little banged up. I think he came back in, but Jacob Fields at safety, another great night for him. Jakari Foster, 11 tackles. Colby Field, 11 tackles. Just the defense produces at a level where, for as bad as the offense has been and continues to be, this defense has proven that it can keep you in games, and it's a top 25 defense for a reason. And again, taking the ball away, I think, is kind of the next step, and I think could maybe give Louisiana Tech a little bit more breathing room in some of these games. If the offense is going to continue to be this bad, but at the same time, you have to give credit to this defense for what they're doing. Again, they're not setting the world on fire. They're not getting after the passer probably at the level that they need to be, but they're getting off the field. They're getting stops when it matters. And again, that fourth down stop to end the game. I think back to the Tulsa game a couple weeks ago when, when Evan Bullock, hits Eli Finley for a go-ahead score with I think 3 minutes left. And you let Tulsa go down and obviously take the win from you. And then obviously New Mexico State last week, your kicker has to make the 27-yard field goal. But at the same time, you have the lead with 5 minutes left, and then you let them march 75 yards to tie the game. And so, I think for Louisiana Tech's defense, that was a confidence booster. Jacob Fields, we talked to him after the game. He kind of said we had to dig our heels in and show people that we can be a defense that shuts teams down and puts games away. And so I think for the defense, you have to give them a ton of credit. They won Louisiana Tech this game, point blank period. Again, Evan Bullock had a really great drive, in the fourth quarter to put Louisiana Tech ahead. But Louisiana Tech would not be in this game if Louisiana Tech's offense, the way that they were playing, would not be allowed to stay in this game had the defense not go out there and do what they did, holding UTEP down like they did. And so, again, obviously, if you're Sonny Cumbie, the offense has to improve. But at the same time, you hired Jeremiah Johnson. You put together this defensive staff. You brought in some of these players from the transfer portal, and most of them have hit in a good way. And so, again, I think you have to give credit where credit is due. That being said, we saw kind of a flip side where we saw a really encouraging game, offensively, against Middle Tennessee 2 weeks ago, and then you come out and lay an egg against New Mexico State. Sam Houston is probably the second best team in this conference. That's your next opponent. Louisiana Tech is going to need a much better offense to beat Sam Houston, just based on what I've seen. And so, but again, maybe the defense is just so good that maybe all Louisiana Tech needs is 2 or 3 drives, and that's all it'll take to win. But if you're going to flip to some of the negatives in this game, I'm looking at the run box score, and it's hard to look at. 30 rushes for 7 yards. That's a 0.2 yards per carry average. For those doing the math at home, UTEP came in allowing 214 rushing yards per game. This is back-to-back weeks where you have faced a defense in New Mexico State and UTEP that has allowed over 210 yards rushing per game. And you come away with just a frustrating night of running the football. I know Louisiana Tech has had to battle through some injuries. Denario Davenport has not played in a while. Marquise Crosby, when he does, get a couple carries, he doesn't really look the same. 3 carries for 2 yards tonight. It's really kind of the Amani Givens and Amari Wiggins show, and then Jimmy Holiday and some Wildcat looks tonight. Just 30 carries for 7 yards. Sonny Covey was left shaking his head when we asked him about it post game, and he should be. I'm not sure what the answer is. They've shuffled around some guys on the offensive line. They've given pretty much every running back on this roster opportunities. Fred Robertson had a crucial false start mistake on the 5-yard line, and we didn't see much of him the rest of the night for good reason. And so again, I don't know if it's a matter of you just have to ask Amari Wiggins to go out there and say, hey, we're going to give you the ball 15 times tonight. Those are your 15 carries, and let's see what you can do. They keep trying to do the kind of the shuffling in and out of let's give these guys 5 or 4 carries at a time. I don't think that's working. Jimmy Holiday again had some nice, wildcat carries to start, but I mean that's not sustainable for a running attack. And I think you clearly saw. I mean, they got down to the 5 yard line tonight, in a rush for no game, an incomplete pass, and then a sack. You don't have a run game that you trust in short yardage. I mean that's just period, end of story. And so again, it starts with the personnel that they have. And again, like I said, they've shuffled the offensive line. They've brought in a lot of running backs for some opportunities, and it's not worked. And so, they're going to have to figure out something in the run game to get going because, again, I kind of talked about this with Ben Carlisle on Blue Tech Blue Radio, about a week or so ago. The Evan Bullock is a redshirt freshman, and he had a nice, again, 97-yard touchdown drive. But you can't continue to go out there and expect him to play turnover-free football and deliver those moments for you when you're so one-dimensional. Again, UTEP is horrible. They're a bad football team. You should have beat them. They're a bad defense. But they shut you down in the run game. I mean, it was embarrassing to watch. I don't know how they continue to run this poorly when they have experience back there with a guy like Marquise Crosby, and again maybe he's not 100% healthy. Amari Wiggins, the flashes have been there, but then the frustrating times have also been there when you're not running forward. Amani Givens, again had the go-ahead touchdown, run with 6 minutes left, but outside of that, did 5 carries for 10 yards. It's just not good enough. And so again, if you're Louisiana Tech, this offense, it has to find ways to get out of this kind of the one-dimensional funk that they're in. That being said, I guess if you want to look for a positive offensively, I think Louisiana Tech has something in Evan Bullock. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that I feel like if he stays in this program, he could be the future. You're now looking at a redshirt freshman that has not turned over the football this season. That cannot be understated. I know they've played some bad defenses. I know the level of competition is not, this is not SEC football. But at the same time, you're talking about a kid that came into this year, I think, with one career game under his belt. And he has not turned over the football in 6 games this year. 9 touchdowns. I think, is he at 1,000 yards? Yeah, I mean he's over 1,000 yards through 6 games. That's really, really good. You can't overstate that. And Sonny Cumbie kind of mentioned he's kind of that clutch gene in him. Obviously Louisiana Tech trailing 10-7, entering the fourth quarter. They needed a spark offensively, and he delivered it. He went 5 of 6 for 93 yards on the go-ahead touchdown drive. That's really good for any quarterback, let alone a redshirt freshman. And I wrote this down just for people to kind of have some more context. On third downs this year, here's what Evan Bullock has done. 34 for 46 passing for 497 yards. That's 14.6 yards per completion. That's pretty good. 74% completion percentage. That's really, really good on a money down where UTEP was bringing pressure tonight. And Evan Bullock, he's been sacked 9 times over his last 2 games. This offensive line has been horrible in terms of protecting him. But he's made throws. He's connected with True Edwards. He found Jimmy Holiday on some good crossing routes tonight. Still would like to see Marlon Jackson get involved on the passing game. I'm not sure where he was tonight. Solo Lewis obviously had the 47-yard touchdown in the first half, but credit Evan Bullock. There's been few and far between plays where I look at him and say, man, that's a redshirt freshman out there. He looks composed. He obviously was able to lead the team down when it mattered, and so I think if you're looking for any sort of positive offensively, is that I think Louisiana Tech has a quarterback, and I think it has a quarterback that it can win with. Again, you want to see him connect a little bit more downfield. You want to see him a little bit more decisive in the pocket. He still has to read pressure around him a little bit better in the pocket in terms of stepping up and kind of recognizing that the pressure is going to get to him. But at the same time, when you're that efficient on third down, it's hard to not support that. It's hard to not say, hey, Louisiana Tech can build on this, for the future, and has a quarterback that it can win with. And I think if it can put together a running game of any kind and get kind of out of this one-dimensional look, who knows what he could do. Again, another night over 240 yards passing, just efficient. It's not going to blow your mind in terms of the box score, but it was enough. He didn't turn over the football, and it was enough. It was enough for Louisiana Tech to win. So. Again, overall, a great defensive performance. It's nothing new for what we've seen this year. And I think going forward, that's where Louisiana Tech has to improve. is the defense is so good, the offense has to put together scoring drives in the first quarter and the first half. I think I wrote tonight in 5 of Louisiana Tech's 7 games, Louisiana Tech has not scored in the first quarter. And there's a reason you've won only 3 games this year is because in 5 of them you have not scored. And so, again, if you're Louisiana Tech, trust in this defense, trust that it's going to get you the stops that you need, and come out ready to play in the first half and the first quarter, frankly. And if you do that, you might have a chance against Sam Houston. If you don't, I'm not sure if Louisiana Tech can still make a bowl game at this point. Obviously, mathematically, it's still on the table, but you look at Sam Houston, probably going to be in the Conference USA Championship game. Western Kentucky, a really good team. Arkansas, obviously, very good team in the SEC. Jacksonville State kind of taking their lumps this year, but still a team that put up 56 on you last year. And then, obviously, you end the year with Kennesaw State, who definitely should be a win. So, if you're Louisiana Tech, you took care of business like you had to. If Louisiana Tech lost this game tonight with the way that the offense was playing, I kind of thought they were. If you had lost this game tonight, your season would have been over, just point blank, period. But Louisiana Tech found a way, and the wins count all the same. So, again, Louisiana Tech wins 14-10. Definitely an ugly win, but it's a win, and it counts. And Louisiana Tech improves to 3-4 overall and 2-2 in Conference USA play. That's going to do it here for this edition of Tech in 10. For the Ruston Daily Leader, I am sports editor Matt Bellinson saying thank you for listening. Have a good one.